Well, what shall we think about today? So therefore, none of you can become my disciples if you do not give up all your possessions. Or, whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. What shall I preach about today? It's funny, as I was reading this gospel this week in preparation, it shows you how perverse my mind is sometimes. But I was reminded, I used to be a smoker back in the day, and those of you who were will also remember the little warning signs on the cigarette packets that we all used to ignore? You know, warning, this product may seriously damage your health. Remember those? Yeah, back in the day. Well, I was sort of reminded, this gospel, and maybe even our faith should have a warning label on it. Warning! Christianity may seriously change your life. Don't you think? Because that's kind of what Jesus is heading up this morning. All these people following him, for lots of different reasons, I am sure. And we're all here, maybe, for lots of different reasons too. And he turned to them and said, warning, all of this may seriously change your life. Are you up for that? Are you really up for that? Because I'm going to Jerusalem, and it's going to cost me everything. Everything. Is that what you really want? Are you really prepared for that? Do you have the strength? Do you have the courage? Do you really want? Because what Jesus is laying out for us this morning, as he does every morning, every day, every Sunday, he's saying there are consequences to following me, because there are serious choices to make. The consequences for Jesus and Jesus' early followers and the early church, the early Christians, the choices were very clear and very stark. Because Jesus, of course, was a Jew, preaching and ministering in a Jewish context. But very clear, it became obvious that those who followed Jesus as the Messiah could not remain within the safe, comfortable confines of the Jewish synagogue communities. They had to make a choice. Either you stay with what you have known all these years, with the faith of your mothers and your fathers, which is safe and comfortable and ancient and holy, or you follow this carpenter's son, who is also the Messiah. And how unlikely is that? But you have a choice. Jesus' followers, the apostles and the early Christians, they could either follow Jesus, but that meant leaving Judaism behind. Maybe you and I was thinking, many of you have come from different faith traditions. Christian traditions, other faiths, or maybe no faith tradition. And you, at some point, have made a decision to be here in this church and be associated with the Episcopal tradition, presumably because it answers the core of your heart. And praise God for that. But who knows, some of you may have come from traditions where your family or your friends or your associates were not happy with that choice. The Episcopal Church? What are you thinking? Episcopalians, they're hardly Christians. They don't really stand for anything. Oh, but they do. They do. They do. And there are lots of other choices. lots of other consequences to our faith as well. Because what Jesus is saying is that if you begin to open your heart to God and God's love, your life will change. You will find that, well, one, as Paul found, you have brothers and sisters who don't look anything like you and don't think anything like you, and yet you come to find that they are your brothers and sisters. They are your neighbours as well. In fact, they might become closer to you than even family itself. And as you embrace God's love more and more, you will start to feel this working deep in the pit of your stomach that draws you out of yourself, and you start seeing the world in a different way. You start seeing the world and others through the eyes of compassion, through the eyes sometimes of pity, of longing for a better world. And that can be difficult, as well as joyful and life-giving. But, you may find you want to start to give away some of your possessions, some of your money. Now that's a radical thought, right? And in giving away, you find joy in that and satisfaction in that, rather than hoarding it and keeping it all for yourself, which is kind of what the world tells us. You have to keep it all. That's the way to happiness. But when you open your hearts to God's love, you find that giving it away actually is so much more joyful than keeping it all to yourself. Whoa! You see, warning. Christianity may seriously change your life. And as I said, the more we open our heart to God's love, the less content we find ourselves with the status quo, with the powerful having the last say and sometimes the only say, with brothers and sisters who do not have the same privileges maybe that you and I have had. And so we find our choices changing, our priorities changing. And those around us who've been maybe used to the old you, what's this? What is this? What are they doing to you in church? I always say, the electrodes, they only hurt for the first 30 seconds. And then it's all great. Then you're always happy. But we find our lives are changed. It's interesting. But I think a lot of us originally came to church, maybe, if we weren't raised in it, because we thought we were looking for something. We come because we want to be comforted. We want to have some kind of solace. And what I suspect happens is over time, the me part, the I part becomes less important, and the us part and the God part becomes more important. So it becomes less about my comfort, my solace, me feeling good about myself. And over time that becomes less and less important. I don't care about my own solace. I don't care about my own comfort. I care more about other people's solace and about other people's comfort. And that is the work of the Holy Spirit within us. And that, I suspect, is why you and I are here this morning. And if it's only just happening, or if it hasn't happened quite yet, warning. It will happen. It will happen. Jesus said, yes, beware. You can't become a disciple unless you are prepared to give up all your possessions. And give them up now. Because in the end, we'll all have to give them up anyway. Because all of us will stand before God, before the blessed Holy Trinity, just as we are, and be embraced in love. And all the toys, and all of the trinkets, and all of the faded laurel leaves crowns that we've collected over the years will mean nothing. Christianity will seriously change your life day by day. Amen.